Welcome to this week's edition of Wine Insider. I'm Tom Jarris from the International House of Wine and Cheese and forwinelovers.com, and
I'm Frank, the Internet Wino.
So Frank, what's been going on?
It's been a busy week. I haven't really drank a lot of wine. I've been looking forward to tonight.
Well, you know, I was in Aspen at the Food and Wine Show.
You were drinking wine.
I drank a lot of great wine. I thought tonight we'd talk about Opus and drink a little bit of Opus One. So this is the 2000 vintage, which happens to be my daughter's birth year. So I've actually got a lot of this. I've got a lot of large format. And first off, let's pour a little bit here. Opus One's one of my favorite California wineries. I don't know where it falls on your list of higher end fine quality wineries, but I think that Opus has gone through a really interesting evolution. Cheers, first of all. Most of you out there probably know that Opus One was the first joint venture between a California winery and a French winery, and it was a joint venture between Robert Mondavi, who you could say is the grandfather of Napa Valley, and the Baron Philippe de Mouton Rothschild, who at the time was the owner of Chateau Mouton Rothschild. His daughter Philippine now is the managing partner of that winery, first growth French Bordeaux. And it had never been even contemplated to have a joint venture. So, have you ever been to the winery?
I've never been to the winery, but I've heard that it's a phenomenal trip.
It really is something very special. It's state of the art in terms of winemaking, and I should say it's got a really interesting blend of current technology and old traditional methods that they use in Bordeaux. It's all gravity fed. Start with the vineyards themselves. Opus owns a lot of their own vineyards now. They didn't at its inception. The first vintage was 1979, and very small production back then. I remember buying the initial case, the release of Opus One. It was 4 bottles of 1980 and 2 bottles of 1979, and I had to put it on the shelf for $19.99 a bottle,
which no one knew what it was,
which was unheard of at that time. I mean, you know, I was partners with my dad back then, and my dad was like, "What's this wine for $20 on the shelf?" You know, I mean, no wine sold for that much money.
Wow.
And I wish I had a few more of those 6-packs I bought back then now, you know. But through the 80s, really what they had to do is they took a lot of the best fruit that went into the Mondavi Reserve Cabernet, and that wine really suffered while the Opus was doing very well. So as Opus started purchasing their vineyards, they were making wine all through that period, and I believe what they did is they took the best quality grapes that were going into the Mondavi Reserve, and the quality of that went down substantially in the vintages through the 80s.
Were they really trying to get to the Bordeaux blend that the French were famous
Yes,
for?
they were. So getting back to the winery, when they finally did build a winery, an interesting sidebar about building the winery was that it was on, I think, a hot spring, and they didn't realize it, and it cost several extra $1 million, I think, just in concrete alone, because the thing was starting to sink.
Wow.
So a little tidbit, but
I've seen the inside. It's kind of a combination of modern, like you said, the caves where the barrels are stored, plus it's got some of the high-tech stuff as well.
It does. Well, you know, I'm going to backtrack 1 second here. They changed winemakers not too long ago. When the Mondavi family started de-emphasizing their involvement in Opus One, winemaker, I'm lost for his name, I'll think of it in a second, but he was at Stag's Leap Wine Cellars. He has really great history of where he's worked. And Michael Salacci is his name. And Michael changed a lot of things. They started doing different things when they picked the grapes and how they picked them. The sorting table, they take a lot of really small berries with really good flavor, really great flavors. They don't anything that doesn't look good out. They really changed a lot of things, and they changed a lot of things in the vineyards in terms of how they prune, and before it was so traditional and it was very regimented on how they did everything. He brought a lot of systems into the vineyard with the vineyard managers and the pickers, and the quality in the last several vintages has gone up, you know, probably 5 to 7 points in Wine Spectator ratings. For a while, Opus wasn't getting anything even in the 90s, which is an embarrassment for a wine that retails this much.
Right.
But anyway, so everything comes in on the top level, and the juice is gravity fed. Everything goes with gravity in terms of the free flow of the juice. They don't do a second press at Opus, and it comes down. They use all new barrels every year.
You can definitely smell that wood.
They fine with egg whites, which is a traditional Bordeaux style, and I think they're finally getting to where they always wanted to be. Sad part is how the Mondavi family has lost their interest in this. It's now the Mondavis were pretty much had no decision but to sell their interest in the Robert Mondavi Winery, which is now owned by Constellation Brands. And for a while, everybody thought, well, is Chateau Mouton Rothschild, are they going to partner with a conglomerate? Does over $1 billion in sales, and the long and the short of it is exactly what's that going to do to the wine? Are we still going to be able to influence with our French way of doing things? And the long and the short of it, the answer is yes. That's what's happened very successfully, and I think that it was a good thing that Tim and Davi moved on to bigger and better things, and Opus now is run. One other interesting thing is that I know the Midwest Opus rep very well. Her name's Gina Voci, and they really run independent of Constellation. They get their own gig. They do what they want to do, and that's a good thing when you got a high quality wine like this. Mm-hmm. So what do you think of this 2000 vintage?
Very nice. A little bright.
You know, I think you're also where I do an annual Opus One dinner every year, right on around last week of October, first week of November. We always kick off the new vintage of Opus One. For several years now, we've been doing it at a restaurant in Arlington Heights, Illinois called Le Titi de Paris, which is a 3.5-star restaurant, Chicago Magazine. The owners, Michael and Susan Maddox, do a great job. You've been to one of those before?
Absolutely, it was phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal.
So hopefully you out there will be able to come to our next one in the fall of this year. So what else do you have to say, Frank?
I just can't really get enough of the Bordeaux blends. It's really probably my favorite kind of wine. And when it's done right, like Opus can be in their best years, this is really one of my favorite kind of wines to have for sure.
And I'll tell you the other thing about Opus, I found I have a lot of older vintages in my cellar. They age very well.
Yeah.
Which you can't say that about a lot of other California wines,
that's
especially
true.
in today's times.
That's true.
All right, well, that's it for this edition of Wine Insider. Cheers, Frank.
See you next time.
See you next time.